Welcome back, everyone, to yet another stream. They're becoming thick and fast, aren't they, these chinwags? But we're here to talk all about what just occurred, what just went down. The first ever sprint shootout, roll intro, spinny logo, 3D, lovely jubbly, pink Carlos Sainz car in the background. Hello, everyone. Good to be back. Good to see you all. For many a day in a row now. Well, I was live on whatever. There's been a lot of these. Okay, so you might be bored of them. If you are, then it's fine. But I wanted to talk about sprint quality because there was a lot of anticipation going into this. Welcome Corbin, Simbru, TKF1, Sud, Mahmoud, Jamie, BBC Radio. What a great name that is. Finley Collins, Hannah, Jolta, Traden, Elia, Leon, Course, Sam, Abstract, Thomas, Helita, Sava, Jake, Axel, Sam. Welcome everyone. Thank you all who's live. Thank you everyone after the fact. Thank you everyone audio only. Charles Leclerc, another pole position, 2 pole positions in a row. A bit of, you had Logan Sargent having a shunt. You had a few people locking up going forward. Charles crashed right at the end. Didn't ruin his opportunity to get pole position though. But yeah, I wanted to talk about it because mainly I've got to be honest. My overwhelming feeling, having watched it, was that of, I don't know if it's too harsh, but I feel like maybe the word's disappointment that I'm looking for. So we're going to do a poll. What did you think? Do you feel about the sprint quali? Very positive, somewhat positive. I'm not gonna put. I've only got 4 options. Somewhat negative. It's like I'm doing one of them like surveys that you get and the fancy ones. Or very negative. Because for me, I'm on the somewhat negative side, to be honest. As much as I think overall, this change to the sprint format, having qualifying and the race and the race not setting the grid, overall I still think that's a better product. I was hoping for more, I was expecting more, and I don't hate it, not by any stretch. I'd rather watch this in FP3. Good point, Caspar. Like, when you compare it to the alternative, however, based on what I think they could have done, I guess, and that's why the thumbnail says what it says. Based on what I think it could have been, how good I think it could have been, how exciting, how unique, how special it could have felt, I was left, it was left lacking for me. I've got to be honest. Now, there's a few little things that they can, move the rules around. Obviously, Lando not being able to run, not even on a scrub set of softs, seemed a bit of a shame. We'll talk about that, but all in all, I'm sitting on the somewhat negative side, I'll be honest. And 378 of you have voted. We've got 11% very positive, 51% somewhat positive. So generally speaking, 61% of you are in the positive camp. 39 of you percent of you are in the somewhat negative. So it's a fairly even split, but yeah, I still think it needs work. You should be happy for Albon. Look, I'm chuffed for Alex, but ultimately, I'm here for the sport first and foremost. And if I think they could have done a better job, then I'm going to say it. So yeah, I think, look, it's not all bad by any stretch. I want to go through my pros and cons. We're going to keep this stream fairly short as well. There's no need to do too much waffling on this subject. Starting with what I liked about it. What did I like about the first ever sprint shootout? I liked how the medium tyres in SQ1 and SQ2 allowed drivers to, obviously you only got one set of tyres anyway, but using the medium meant that you could punch in loads of laps, go quick, cool down, go quick, cool down. You're not, rinsing through the tyre like you do on a soft typically. It kind of felt a little bit F2-esque to me. You know, when in qualifying in Formula 2, where you get multiple runs on the same tyre, we never usually see that in qualifying in F1. That was nice. That felt somewhat different. That was the biggest way in which it felt different to the norm. Yes, the times were shorter. That didn't really make it feel different. The times being shorter themselves to me, and it's one of the things you don't know until you actually watch it. And just that was nice. That was nice. I was pleasantly surprised. I wasn't too sure when this said about the medium allocation. You had to run a medium in SQ1, SQ2. I wasn't too sure about that beforehand, but that part I was happy with. If everyone's on the same tyre, just because they're not all on the soft, it's not. I don't really, depending on what they're running the softest compounds this weekend, aren't they? So the medium here is I can never remember. Is C1 soft or is C5 soft? I can't actually remember. But whatever. They're running the softest allocation. So the medium tyres have still got a decent amount of softness to them. So they could push. And I liked that. That was cool. That was cool. Because also, C5 is soft. Thank you, Corbin. It looked like the drivers were pushing. We had Logan going into the wall. We had a lot of close calls. We had drivers locking up. It wasn't like just because, it didn't feel like drivers were pushing any less hard. Now, I know obviously after Logan crashed on the comms, they were saying, this is the session to not take risks. But is it? Like, I don't think there's... Because the sprint is isolated to this Saturday, you can argue for sure that you could take more risks. Well, you can take just as many risks, I guess. Because you're not potentially affecting where you start on a Sunday. You can just go for it, go like the clappers on its own, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I think that was nice to see. Because there was a bit of uncertainty beforehand, I feel like, how much the drivers would and wouldn't push. My throat's gone, I need some more water. Drink water, everyone. It's good for you. So yeah, I was pleasantly surprised with that. I was happy with that. And look, ultimately, it is more competitive running. It is more competitive sessions. I think it gives good value to the fans who are there on track. If you can't make the Saturday, you still get to watch, a full qualifying session on Friday and vice versa. And ultimately, yeah, I am more likely to watch when there is more competitive running. If it's just practice on a Friday, I'm more likely to miss it, or just not watch intently, I suppose. And it puts more eyeballs on FP1 as well, because that is the one testing session. So you're looking at, especially with all these upgrades coming, as well. It gives more focus to FP1. It's more of a challenge for the teams and the drivers, which I haven't got a problem with that challenge personally. Like, I think, again, having that 3-week break coming into this race as well, and then just one practice session before qualifying, I think we saw drivers struggle more than they typically would yesterday, not just with the crashes that we had yesterday, but also, people spinning, just people not nailing their laps. I think that's a product somewhat of that. But yeah, overall, more competitive running. I'm never going to be... Not never going to be against that, of course. There's always a limit, right? But I'm not fundamentally against having competitive running on a Friday, Saturday. And it was interesting. But all in all, again, like I said, I'm coming away from this on the somewhat negative side for kind of two main reasons, but significant ones. The first one, look, I mean, it's just a little bit of a loophole, isn't it? The tyre rule is a bit silly. Lando couldn't run in that final SQ3 session because he didn't have a fresh set of softs available. I don't know why you wouldn't just let him, okay, if a team wants to choose to use all of their softs in normal qualifying and then not have a fresh set for SQ3, that's fine. That's a decision that McLaren and Lando made, that Yuki and AlphaTauri made. But at least let them run a set of scrubs. Like, surely. I don't understand why you wouldn't just let them use a scrub set of softs. I don't know. It seems to be a bit of a loop. But apparently as well, which we could have got if Yuki had got through to Q3 as well. According to Andrew Benson on Twitter, he was saying that actually that part of this loophole as well is that he could have run a wet tyre if he'd wanted to. Lando could have run a wet tyre in SQ3 and gone out. Now, obviously, if, he was he knew he'd be starting P10. So there was no point in him going out at all and putting wear on the engine. What's the point? But obviously, if him and Yuki both got to SQ3, they could both have run wet tyres and then seen who would set the fastest lap between the two of them to decide P9 and P10, which is pretty mad. Like, again, Andrew Benson tweeted this, and he is a legitimate BBC F1 source. So that's why I'm choosing to believe that. But that's pretty crazy, isn't it? Like, on a boiling hot Baku dry track, you could get two cars on wet tyres trying to, because they used all their allocation in qualifying on a Friday. So yeah, that's pretty mad. I remember, was it Pierre Gasly in a Toro Rosso did that once, went out on a dry track on wet tyres. I can't even remember why, but I seem to remember. I've got that image in my head. Yeah, a bit odd. Tommo caught in 4K wearing the same top. True, I'm wearing the same top as I did yesterday, because I didn't make it that sweaty, so it doesn't smell. Germany 2019? That's it. Yeah, that was a bit of a mad race. But ultimately, my biggest disappointment again with it is I was hoping for something that would feel really different, really special, really set up this sprint and this Saturday as something different, right? And yeah, I was quite positive at the start when they did the F1 intro and then Crofty was talking and it had a different background track, and I was like, oh, okay, this is okay, different background music. I like that. Done something to separate it from the vibe of the Sunday. Cool. But the fact that they were on the mediums and doing, pounding around, doing all that, like, okay, yeah, it was different, but did it feel different enough? Not for me. Not for me. It didn't. It didn't feel different, unique, special enough compared to conventional quali. And I think that is the opportunity here. That's the missed opportunity I'm feeling as a fan, that it feels, even though it is slightly different, it just feels too similar to what we got on Friday, to conventional quali. Now, look, I've been banging the one-shot drum for a long time now. Could they have done, for example, you've got SQ1, SQ2 on the medium tyres as is, and then SQ3, sorry, is a one-shot. I think that could be interesting. Making the whole thing a one-shot, that could also be interesting. Would be difficult because I guess the problem with making the whole thing a one-shot, as this format stands, is that you're literally asking the driver to jump into the car, have one warm-up lap, and then go full send. Which, as much as I am about, giving the drivers a challenge and all that, okay, and maybe that is a bit pushing it, asking like literally one lap. Got to think about track evolution as well. Look, track evolution is a thing, particularly at street circuits. But if you had SQ1, SQ2, as we had it with the mediums, and you running multiple laps on those individual set of tyres, you're running multiple laps. Push, call, push. You're evolving that. You've got 20 cars out in SQ1, so you're evolving that track quite quickly, and you get to a stage where the track evolution starts to kind of peter out, and then you get that final 10 in SQ3 who are just doing one lap each. That track evolution, if you're just one car at a time, I think that track evolution, it's clearly minimal compared to 20 cars running out in SQ3 where everyone's benefiting from track evolution. So what I would like to see next time, for me, to make this a bit more different, is that I think this is reasonable. SQ1, SQ2, as we had it, I can deal with that. Again, it felt different enough. It felt more F2-esque with the, lapping again and again and again. Fine. But then SQ3, make it one shot. That's how I feel. That's how I feel about it. Do I think in terms of the running order for that one shot, maybe the top 10 from SQ2 go out in reverse order. So whoever qualified P10 in SQ2 goes out first. Yes, I understand track evolution is a thing. I get that it exists. What also exists as we saw in SQ1, was drivers crash and you get red flags, and then Yuki Tsunoda, who would have comfortably got out of Q1, SQ1. I need to keep calling it that so that it's clear differential. SQ1, Tsunoda would have easily got out and didn't. He was like 100 meters from the finish line and red flag, boom. So that's not fair either. So what I'm saying is there's no solution that is completely fair. But for me, one shot where you don't have red flags ruining other drivers' laps because everyone's going out one at a time. You know, and as soon as someone finishes, as soon as someone crosses the finish line, that's when the next car comes out, so that you can't start your lap. What am I trying to say? You can't start your lap, like start your out lap, and then someone in front, the driver who's gone ahead of you, crashes, and then you have to come back in again, and you've just scrubbed that set for no reason, right? For me that's better, because then it just makes it feel more different. It's just felt too similar. It just felt too samey, and I think if they're going to make the sprint product, I think if they're going to get fans on side, because there's a lot of skepticism, and I get it. I get where a lot of this skepticism comes from, and changing it for the sake of changing it. But I do think there's a real opportunity here to try something a bit different. And I don't have a fundamental problem with the sprint. I don't have a fundamental problem with competitive running Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I think this is a step in the right direction, but I still don't think we're there yet. And I think it takes actually seeing that, because I'm happy for F1 to try stuff. You know what I mean? I think a lot of these things can work in theory. We've tried things in the past with that aggregate qualifying, all this stuff. Like, stuff can work in theory, but in practice, and this we'll see later today for this sprint race, whether teams that are towards the back, do they just retire the car and just save the rest of the engine for the rest of the season? Like, it'll be interesting to see how much the teams choose, even the cars that are running, P 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, around the bottom five, how much they choose to push versus how much they just turn it into a that we will only know when we see it, because the teams are going to make, we know the teams aren't going to make the decision that is popular for the entertainment of us. They're going to make the decision that is right by them competitively. They're always going to make that decision. We can't rely on the teams to, preserve integrity of racing, like blah blah. They're going to do what they can to maximise performance, maximise results. Simple. So, yeah, that's the way I feel. I think there's a missed opportunity here for sure. What do we think, chat? I'll get a few of your opinions and takes out of the chat, and then we'll wrap this up, because there's not too much more to cover, really. I think I've said my piece. Jungle, as a casual fan, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yeah, look, I think that I understand the essence of that. We're onto a good thing with Q1, Q2, Q3. It works really well. It's a good format. It has its downs, like its downsides. Traffic, people crashing, ruining other people's laps, blah blah blah. Like, no system's perfect. People getting a tow. You could argue, well, is that a not even for a tow from a teammate? I think Aston Martin played a blinder using Stroll and Alonso to help each other out, right? But in terms of a tow from, like, just being lucky to get a tow, or is that unfair to someone who? Because then you get all this, like, Monza nonsense, right? When no one wants to be at the front, you don't get any of that when you do one shot, for example. So just because a system works, doesn't mean I don't think it it couldn't, it can't be improved, or it can't just have something different. And the whole point of the sprint, again, is to be something different. So let's actually make it something different. If you're going to one-shot the race, no pit stops, fine, but then make the quali feel different. It just didn't feel different enough. Do you think the Formula E qualifying format could be good? That kind of head-to-head style? Yeah, maybe. If you don't know, so Formula E has kind of you kind of have a Q1 and Q2 kind of thing with Formula E, and then it goes to head-to-head shootouts, which is cool. I think one shot for F1, I think one shot would be better. I don't think it needs that head-to-head nature, but I think that's something that works really well. I really like that with Formula E. I think that system works really well for that championship. I don't think that should be applied to F1. I just think one shot it, baby. That's what I think. Reverse grid sprint. I mean, reverse grid if you reverse the top 10, but even then I'm just like no. I mean, the only way I could ever get on board with that is if you just reverse gridded the top 10 like in Formula 2. But even then, I mean, that's just like picking the bad of a bad bunch. You know what I mean? I'm not behind that really at all. Thoughts on Sprint Shootout on Friday and quali on Saturday? I mean, it's still back-to-back qualifiers that feel the same. So having watched quali last night, having watched the Sprint Shootout this morning, I don't think swapping them around would make me feel any different about it, to be honest. So I think keeping the Saturday just together, it's just the Saturday on its own as its own separate thing. I think that's just a bit of a cleaner, more, rather than having the sprint qualifying on the Friday and then, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I just think it's a bit better as it is, personally. Just overcomplicating things to appeal to all F1 fans, but it will never happen. Miss the old F1 era. This new era ain't it. Too much change. Nobody understands the integrity of the sport anymore. Look, I understand where you're coming from, Sauce Jukes. I do, but also I don't. Like if we think Red Bull are dominant at the minute, go on Wikipedia and go pick some random race in like the 80s or the 90s or the Schumacher dominant or the mid 2000s. Like, I think this sport is as competitive. You look through the whole grid as it ever has been. Like, if you look at the delta between the quickest and slowest car, it is by far and away the closest it has ever been right now. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. And I know we look back at, and there's certain things from the past, sure, that, I think we shouldn't forget our past, the past of the sport, because I think some things were better than they are now, but a lot of things weren't. So, it's difficult. Yeah, I mean, look, the sound, of course, V10 go burr, exactly, Lachlan. Like, obviously, the sound of a V10, a V8, even, beautiful. Like, I will always miss that from the sport because the sound is part of it, of course. That's part of the reason why we love racing and why many of us love cars is because of the sound. It's machinery. It's like there's something primal about that we don't quite have with these cars, which is a shame. And yeah, I wish the cars were smaller again as well, Angus. But from a safety point of view, it's not going to happen. Again, these cars are quicker than ever. So the more the more physical bodywork you have around a driver, the safer they're going to be in the likelihood of an incident. So I think the cars aren't going to get smaller. They could maybe be a bit shorter. I don't know, perhaps. I don't think they're going to get any narrower. And if it means that, someone has a shunt and they survive versus not, then, I'm fine with that. I don't want the cars to get any bigger, though, that's for sure, especially if we're going to continue race at a place like Monaco. Rose-tinted glasses, yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing. When you look back at the past of the sport, you're more likely to cherry pick the positive stuff than remember the you know, when everyone, you know, P2 was a lap down from P1 and, you know, it was a procession. That's all. F1 has never been like a old, when you compare it to other motorsports, particularly, F1 has been like the least wheel-to-wheel competitive motorsport really ever. You know what I mean? Because almost every other series is a spec series as well. Only in F1 do you get that massive kind of, you look back at the, I don't know, Red Bull versus the Caterham back in like 2014. You know, that's like Usain Bolt versus me. I mean, if Usain has an injury and falls over, then I might win. But other than that, I'm going to be 2 seconds down, 5 seconds down the road. 2 seconds. I'm backing myself too much. But yeah, that's how I feel. I think saying most of you seem to feel positive about it. I still think changes are needed. I'm not fully happy with how it stands, but if you're watching this after the fact as well, let me know in the comments below. Thank you to everyone who joined live. Thank you to everyone who listened, audio only as well. And I'll see you on the last lap tomorrow for our Azerbaijan race watch along. So enjoy the sprint race today. Hopefully it's a good one. We'll see if Charles can hold on. As we saw from the sprints kind of previously, wherever the sprint ends up in terms of the pace, it doesn't change. There's no part Fermi, like it's still under part Fermi, so the teams can't change up the cars between sessions. So hopefully Ferrari can hold on to their tyres. That's our only hope really because we know Charles got it in him, man. Charles has been so impressive, and he's got to be the quickest driver over a lap, isn't he, in F1 at the minute? As much as I think Max is the best driver overall, Charles on another 1 lap record. It's mad. But yeah, thank you all for coming. Lachlan, Shreyas, Thomas, Daniel, Sense, Anish, Halita, Solstukes, PP, Jake, Daniel, Frederick. Go watch the F2 Sprint in 45 minutes. Good shout, Halita. Good shout. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate you all taking the time. Drink water. Be well, be happy, be safe, be good. And I will see you tomorrow on the last lap for the Azerbaijan race watch along. Ciao, I'm done. Goodbye.